Playful Souls, and welcome to the week of July 23rd, 2023. We are fully in the Leo season, and we will be doing the reading for this week, as well as going over the play practice from last week and giving you a new play practice for this week. And there may also be an energy healing session in this because I'm feeling that there's a need for it. So that's good. All right, so Sunday, July 23rd. The falling in your stomach when something terrible happens. But it feels like is it communal? I think it's a communal happening. Something's going to happen on July 23rd that feels like it's a bigger event for everybody. And it's one of those things that just like, it makes the bottom fall out of your gut. It's like, which is an interesting experience because, you know, it feels as if there's a need to really, like, what is that sensation? Like, is that sensation something that's like, I really feel like there's a need to go into the earth, right? Like go into that earth. Like when the bottom drops out, it's like, it's like almost a feeling of free fall, right? In which you may have come to from like a higher space, and then all of a sudden something happens on earth, and it's like you free fall back down into that personal story, into that unrelaxed state, and your body kind of, your aura contracts and moves out of your body. That's what reminds me of that. Feels like that's a Sunday experience. And so in a lot of ways it feels like Monday, July 24th is the experience of a lot of people trying to get back into their bodies or experiencing a prolonged sensation of whatever is going to happen on the 23rd. It feels very, very almost like a floaty day is the way that I can think of it. It's like a day in which we feel that there's a need to there's a lot of people going to be out of their bodies on that day. There's a lot of people who are going to be floating above the experience. And so what I would encourage everyone to do is recognize that communal, like our tendency is to go out of the body when something big happens, right? And I have no idea what the nature of this thing is, but like our tendency is to go out of our bodies when something big happens because that's what we're taught to do so often with traumatizing experiences when we're children, right? Is that we're kind of like, okay, I'm going to leave the body now and it's going to be a good thing for that. And in this particular experience, I really feel like there's a need for us to come back into the body. So if you watched last week, I talked about transmutation and about the idea that our bodies are capable of transmuting things. I've always said that benevolent gossip, in which you're just kind of like telling somebody's story and someone's like, oh, that's so terrible. I'm so sorry that happened. Right. And it's not like malignant in any way. That benevolent gossip is actually a spiritual practice, right? Because what you're doing is you're sharing this feeling of grief amongst people, right? Which is like being the forest and not the tree, right? So when we experience our grief as the tree, it comes across as disease and illness. But when we remember that we're the forest, we can distribute this energy everywhere. So when we have a communal grief that happens on Monday, our ability to really pull into that experience of I am the forest, and therefore I am going to process something for everybody around me. Like I'm going to but not to their detriment, like, and not to your detriment. I'm going to help. I'm going to basically hook myself up to this circuit by being in my body. I'm going to hook myself up to this circuit, and I'm just going to take that much more charge off of every individual who's already connected to the circuit, right? Because when we share that load, it feels like almost nothing. Right. And that's the deal with Monday, is that if you are an energy worker, if you're a light healer, if you're aspiring to be, if you're called to do it, get back in your body by feeling. So the first thing is you feel what you feel, right? And you don't let your mind take you away to all these catastrophic things. You don't let your mind go to any different places. Like you come back into your body and you say, okay, what can I do for the community? I'm going to stay in my body and I'm going to feel what I feel. And by doing that, it's like you're grabbing a hold of that wire and you're taking your portion of the load off. So Tuesday, July 25th, it's an interesting experience because there's so many different timelines, right? And the timeline that I'm pinpointing right now is a timeline that I will experience. And it may not be a timeline that you experience, right? In the same way. Like you may have distance from it, or you may not be able to see it in quite the same way. But the feeling of Tuesday is a feeling of dimensional instability. Tuesday feels like there's flipping back and forth between how bad this is and how bad it could be. And it's like if we're doing the work on Monday, we're holding, one of the things we do is we hold the North Star of what is like the best possible world and future for everybody, right? And instead of looking towards the darkness, we look towards the light. So in Tuesday, there's something that's happening that's making it so that the dimension veils between the veils are thinner. And therefore we can look and we can say, okay, my North Star is actually easier to pull towards me. So it's going to mitigate whatever has happened in the previous 2 days, especially whatever is going to happen on Sunday, the 23rd of July. July 26th, Wednesday. This is really hard in some ways because I can see both timelines now. I can see where it didn't go great, we didn't do the work on Monday, and then where it did go well. So what I'm going to just say is that I'm going to hold the North Star of it did go well and that we were able to process everything and kind of move the dimensionals experience away, which is also important because like needless suffering is not something that we want. But at the same time, the experience of friction and resistance in the world is one of the things that helps us grab hold of the experience of moving somewhere in our body. So yeah, we're going to assume that Wednesday is good, in which case it feels like Elysium, which I guess that's good. It's like golden fields and flowers, and it's like a really light feeling is what it feels like on Wednesday. That there's an experience of relief, that things are not as bad or that people are on a whole coming back into their bodies. And I think there's an important aspect of recognizing that we're coming back into our bodies. It serves for our, like if you were to think of it as, the entirety of the world was, and every single person is like a light. And when they're outside of their bodies, when we're outside of our bodies, that light becomes incredibly dim. Or our power source becomes very weak. You could think of it like that, right? And so it's kind of the same thing, right? In the sense that when we're relaxed and in our bodies and fully playing with all of our tools, we have our full ability and full capability, then we're capable of really understanding the way that the world works in a different way. But mainly, we're actually able to contribute to the field, right? And I haven't mentioned the field before, but the field is the way that I can describe how I do energy healing, how I talk to my clients. Like, I'm cultivating the field and I'm doing the best I can to create a strong enough connection to the field that I have so that anyone who accesses me accesses the field. So even y'all. We do our best to stay in our bodies. We do our best to like play and enjoy our bodies so that we can improve our connection to the field. So Thursday, July 27th, 2023 is another day of personal difficulties. There's some personal difficulties and challenge on July 27th. It feels like there's a resonance with catastrophe, but it's not like a communal catastrophe. It's an experience of there's a lot of frenetic activity and things that you have to deal with on this day. And when you do deal with these things on this day, it's important to recognize that you don't need to experience when we're in our bodies with all of our tools. Disasters don't seem the same as they did before, but when we are depleted, when those power sources and power surge, the source of power is lower and we're outside of our bodies and we're not relaxed, that's when we start to experience a difficulty with dealing with the challenges that arise in the external world. So really double down on any meditation that you're going to do this day with the understanding that you need to be as relaxed as possible to handle whatever personal challenges come up. Friday, July 28th. That's the day they're singing to me. The experience of insecurity, the experience of wanting to come to an understanding with the experience of fairness and equality. So there's a lot of things about injustice on Friday. There's a lot of things with saying, and that's the interesting thing, right, is that like we have put so much effort into the density of the world, right? Because the injustices and the inequities that we've experienced have rightly need to be turned into particles, or they are particles, right? Because that's what happens when we experience significant trauma is our the possibility of things going differently gets weighted down by the particle of that memory. And when we experience the world in a different way and everything becomes a wave, then we're capable of doing things. But we have to absolve our past and our generational trauma in order to be able to lighten the load, to be able to make it so that it's a wave like thing. And we also, there's the whole thing of vengeance. Like we want retribution, and we want validation, and we want this experience of people recognizing that we've been carrying this load for however long that we've been carrying it. And the most important aspect of this is that you can recognize your own load. And you can also recognize that you can put it down, and then you can do processes of forgiveness, because those processes of forgiveness are going to make it so that you can experience a different level of wave form, right? Yeah. A lot of injustice on Friday. And just remember, pulling it into your body, pulling your own feelings about it into your body, not other people's feelings about it, your own feelings. And if you don't have any feelings about that, then you just hold it. You just hold space for it. If you hold space for it, you may find that feelings arise, or you may find that you're just able to transmute it, even though you don't have a necessarily personal, visceral, emotional reaction. All right, the 29th of July. The 29th of July is a slow day. It's a day in which people are going to be very slow. You may find that people are very slow on the road. You may find that there's like a real difficulty with actually getting from one place to another. The whole world is just telling you to slow down. So slow down. Give yourself that. By slowing down, you also allow yourself to process, like we've been talking about this whole week. So the overall reading for the week of July 23rd is that there is some tumult that is happening, and there is some processing and possibly major shadow work. It's not even shadow work, major transmutation work that needs to happen in this week. Whether it's personal or whether there's something that's bigger that happens in the world, all of those things are necessary for for giving us the opportunity to learn new practices, learning the practices of transmuting. So yeah. Okay, so the practice of play last week was all about surrender, and I will give you an update on that either in a separate video or at the end of this video. So stay tuned, and I'll put a link in the notes of the description for what that looks like. And then the energy healing. The practice of play this week is reception. It's reception towards anything and everything that comes into your body, receiving it, recognizing that you don't take away from yourself. When you're in your big self, when your body is relaxed, and when you're in your huge self, it's like you're connected to the field. The field is what dissipates the individual experience of being the tree, right? So the field is what helps us be our big selves, and it helps us process things in a different way, and it is not bypassing, right? There's a very, very kind of religious self-flagellation sort of mentality that we have to feel the pain in our body for prolonged periods of time, and that's just not the case. So when you receive, it's important to recognize that you're receiving and you're saying, first, I'm relaxed, I'm big, I'm in my big self, and I'm here to receive. And so here's the energy healing that you can receive as a first portion of this play. As with any energy healing, it's really important to recognize that your body may or may not want to receive it. Listen to it.